Hi, my name is Thomas Pence, and today I will be discussing the use and construction of climbing anchors. To begin, I'd like to give you a little bit of background as to my knowledge. I've worked in the backcountry industry as a mountaineer, a climbing guide, and in the search and rescue world. I've also competed for the previous 5 years in climbing competitions. This gives me a little bit of knowledge about the sport and how to properly and safely navigate the terrain associated with it. So why would you want to know how to construct a proper climbing anchor? First off, a failed anchor can lead to your death. It's a very important safety feature when establishing a top rope, rappel, or base for a route. If you do it wrong, but it is still safe, you can have excess wear on your equipment, and climbing equipment is expensive, so you don't want to do that. The first anchor I will talk about is something called a 2-point anchor system. It requires very little equipment, just a runner or a sling, 2 carabiners, and 2 locking carabiners. Upon approaching the bolts at the top of the route, you are going to want to clip in with something called a personal anchor system. I didn't put that on here because that is not necessary for the specific anchor, but any climber establishing themselves in this world should have a personal anchor system. When you get to the anchor point, you will see 2 bolts placed at the very top. From there, you will want to clip 2 carabiners into it. Make sure they are opposite opposed and that the screw gates are facing down. This allows you to maintain gravity pulling on those screw gates, and as you work on them, they won't come undone. I know it seems far-fetched, but I've actually had screw gates come undone and a sling slide off of the carabiners while working throughout the day. So this is a very important step. Next, you'll want to take your sling, fold it in half to make a figure 8 shape. This establishes that no matter what, when you clip into the sling, you will not have anywhere to go if that sling breaks, or a carabiner for that matter. Next, you'll want to take both ends and tie figure 8 knots in them about at the midpoint. Make sure to keep the mesh part where the sling has been folded together away from all anchor points and knots in your system. If you include that in a system, then it will significantly weaken your system. Finally, you will see 2 loops in a W format. You're going to want to take your final 2 locking carabiners, clip those through those points, and make sure they are facing down, opposite opposed, clip your rope through them, lock those, and you have a solid anchor system. The blue diagram I have below this top one is generally the angles you want to look for. 90 degrees is a perfect angle that distributes the weight of your body and that load impact to everything there properly. This system is awesome because it allows you to climb off with very well without weakening any part of it. It's something that I look for when I'm guiding people on just sport climbs. It's something that's very important for this project and for what we're doing. The next anchor system I'll talk about is something called a multi-point anchor system. This is a lot more common in large multi-pitch scenarios or trad climbing areas. This is usually done with a cordelet, but can also be done with a sling and runner. But what that is it is an anchor system that has any more than 2 bolted points. These systems tend to be very safe and very well backed up because climbers tend to be very cautious. We like systems like this. So in this system, what you are looking for is you're going to want to have however many carabiners you have there, as well as 2 at the bottom. You're going to clip your carabiners in. They are actually wrong in this top diagram. You can see that they are not facing down with the screw gate. That is something I highly recommend, just like before. From here, you'll be clipping your sling or cordelet through and making a very similar W format, then pulling it through so they meet at the bottom at an equal point. From there, you will tie a figure 8 knot in the sling itself, and this point is called a master point. At the very bottom, you should see multiple open loops. You'll clip your opposite opposed carabiners in those loops and clip your rope through that. This is a very common one that is used in multi-pitch climbing due to the format of a shelf space right above the master point. This one, unfortunately, is not very good if you're going to be on an off-width climb because it significantly weakens it when you transfer that motion due to the lack of slack in that full-strength sling. This is because slings are not made out of a dynamic material. I used an anchor system like this while climbing the 1,000-foot face in Slick Rock outside of McCall, Idaho. I highly suggest it. And I highly suggest that before you ever get on a wall, you get very comfortable in constructing one of these, because understanding how it works and what you do with it is the most important part. So before I sign off, I'd like to give you a couple reminders as to what you need and should look for in your equipment. And that is that no matter what, you want to keep them between 20 and 90 degree angles when you're setting up a anchor system. And remember that every piece of equipment you should be working with should be full strength. That means rated to 22 kilonewtons or 22,000 pounds of force. Remember to keep all carabiners and all locking devices opposite and opposed, as well as the screw gates faced down. A really good adage that I've heard is screw down so you don't screw up. It is a great great way to remember to flip your carabiner over. You also should really know your limit. If you are not comfortable in this environment, do not push yourself. This is not something that you screw around with, because when that happens, people become injured or die. And then a couple final notes on a little bit happier. Climbing is an awesome sport, and I highly suggest anyone who has an interest in it go out and pursue it. I love it. It's my favorite one, and you will meet a great community of people. You just have to know what you're doing. Thank you for listening, and I hope that this gives you a little bit of knowledge as you move forward into your climbing career and exploring the rocks and crags near you. Thank you.